we got a couple of our favorites. We've got Nick Angstadt from Locked On Mavericks. He does a fantastic job. He's been following that team every step of the way. We're going to be Maverick heavy, especially early. I love it. You do a fantastic job. And I know it's been hard as of late, my friend. So keep it up. And we got the great Mike Leslie with us as well. We got a ton to chop up, you guys. I mean, there's a lot to get into. And let's just start with, before we get to, Luka coming to town, Nick, I got to start with you. Tough weekend in L.A., huh, bud? I know you weren't there, but for the Mavericks.
Very tough. Just a back-breaking couple of losses. You have the one where they sit Anthony Davis, they sit, Derek Lively, and you say, okay, understandable. The Clippers have played really well. They're the team that's kind of making a run in March. That there's always one team that sort of makes a run at the end of the season, and then all of a sudden they surprise some people in the playoffs. And so the Clippers, you expected a loss there. And then you go, all right, but wait until Anthony Davis and Derek Lively, and we get PJ Washington in that front court for the first time with those two other guys. It's going to look totally different, baby. And it didn't look any different at all, except for like a quarter and a half. It was such a demoralizing loss for the Mavericks, who are still kind of just holding on. But to look that bad against a team that is not that much higher than you in the standings was very tough.
Well, especially, Mike, coming off, what we saw against Atlanta. And listen, it's a game winner. And it was a little bit of a moment where you got a little bit of a lift. And to have this kind of weekend, just kind of the air goes out of the balloon completely.
Yeah, to Nick's point, I mean, again, you looked at Saturday like, okay, schedule the first of the two games. Schedule loss, not a big deal. Friday night, you're trying to rest some guys that are coming back off injury. We're not going to lose any sleep over that. That happens in the NBA, even down the stretch of a hunt for a playoff spot or a play-in spot and home court in that first play-in game. It's still going to happen in the NBA. But to come out the very next night and completely lay an egg and look like you are utterly non-competitive for a second straight night against a team you very realistically may play in the second play-in game if you're so fortunate to win the first one for the final spot in the postseason. That does not bode well, and not that much has boded well for the Mavs for the last 2 months now, but if there was any sort of groundswell of, hey, maybe this team really can get into the 8-team field, and hey, maybe they can win a game or two against Oklahoma City and give them a little bit of a scare, which we're talking about an Oklahoma City team that might win 70, so probably not. But whatever groundswell of belief that they're started to build, those two games against LA kind of popped the balloon.
All right, so let's look ahead now. And speaking of that Oklahoma City team, today it was the Lakers absolutely putting their boot on their neck. Luka scores 37 boards, 6 assists, complete dominating laugher. And it's like the Luka warm-up for did you call it the Luka-apocalypse?
I didn't give any.
Did you do that on purpose?
I did nothing off the top. I just called it the apocalypse because that's what it feels like regardless.
I think you said Luka-apocalypse.
He's going to try and catch me on something. Man. I did nothing. It's what it feels like, though, for sure.
Wow. But at any rate, here we go. Here we go. And what do you think, Andrew? You're off the top.
I mean, just in general, it's funny that we get this groundswell of positivity just before the free fall. And this feels like kicking the Mavs while they're down, about to head into a 10-seed situation, or a 10-seed in the play-ins, excuse me, in that regard. Ultimately, though, I'm more curious to see how the fans are going to absorb this entire situation, whether it'll be pro-Luka, will there be a lot of Lakers jerseys in attendance, will they be not necessarily against the Mavs, but like you've heard a lot of people come out and say it's like we're Luka fans, we're not Mavs fans anymore. How split is that going to be? That arena going to be in that environment? Nick, what do you think?
Yeah, I've talked to maybe 1,000 Mavericks fans since the trade happened between at games and online and all that. And it is split where you just have some that have just completely given up their Mavs fandom. We're season ticket holders, we're people that have gone to Mavs games their entire life and have now just given up and gasp are now Lakers fans because they love Luka and have followed his career. And that's something that you just can't replace. It's one of the reasons why this trade was so shocking is that you had built up such a love and built up such a relationship with this athlete for 6 or 7 years now. Even before the draft, people were wanting Luka to come to Dallas. And then you finally got him and then you made it to a finals and all that. And so I think there is going to be a huge swell of support for Luka Doncic. I think the chants and the things that the Mavericks have tried to quell over the last couple of weeks, I think those will come back. We're doing a live show in person the day before, and so I'm really curious to see how the reaction is going to be there to talk to people in person. And so we'll get a ton of reaction from people there and to see how they're feeling. But I think it's just one of those where if the Mavericks are in a better spot, I think it could be a little bit more equal. But because the Mavericks are in such a bad spot, the Lakers are so much higher than them in the standings right now, I think it could get really ugly for the Mavericks.
Let's keep going around the horn. Mike, what do you think?
I expect it to be ugly. I really do. I'm not even sure if it's split at this point with the reactions that I've seen over the course of the last couple of months. I think it's pretty decidedly leaning toward Luka and leaning toward the Lakers in the reaction that we've seen from now, in a lot of cases, former Mavs fans with their reaction to this trade and the aftermath of it. Listen, it would be interesting to see what a simultaneous universe might look like if you hadn't seen Kyrie get hurt, and if AD hadn't been hurt for so long, and if those two had been able to actually play together, and we had seen a little bit of what Nico's vision was for all of this actually play out on the floor. That just never happened, and as a result, this team cratered for a while. They have, as we talked about before, surged a little bit here late in the season, but there was a long time where they were cratering. And it just has taken the air out of this team entirely, and this whatever's left of this fan base entirely. I think you're going to see a lot of bright gold Lakers uniforms in the stands of the AAC, worn by people that 3 months ago identified as Mavs fans.
Joe, I think you're right, Mike. And listen, you stole my thunder, because that's been the thunder. Not the worst thing about it. Yeah, not the worst thing about it, but one of the bad things about it is we don't really get to see how this was supposed to look. Right? As a fan, listen, didn't agree with it. Many don't. Many never will and never could. Yeah. But at least let's see what the guy was thinking, right? We get robbed of that. And now, with the Mavericks doing what they did this weekend, any positivity, like we all said, has just gone out the window. So that leads me to the next question. And this is Luka-centric, because, listen, I know what those fans are going to do. It is going to be an opportunity for them to vent and show their anger towards the Mavs front office, especially Nico Harrison, right? It's going to be that. But I do also think they are going to go nuts for Luka. They are, and like you said, Mike, they're going to have on, there's going to be a lot of purple and gold in that building on that night. But the other thing is, what do you think Luka's going to do? Because we saw him, he struggled emotionally in that first game against the Mavericks. He was not himself. He wasn't comfortable. He wasn't in sync. He barely could do anything right, to be honest. So I'll ask you, is he going to score 50 on Wednesday night? Nick?
It would be one of those storybook moments if he did, but he has not shot the ball super well except for this game against the Thunder. So he is not on. We have not seen prime peak Luka at this point in the season. So if he's going to, it could be like this game today against the Thunder could have been a warm up into that, because he was looking like a guy that could score like that. It is going to be super emotional. And so I am curious to see how Luka is going to respond to that. The last game was in LA. It's a little different. There was not as much of the crowd in it and all that, but I kind of want the emotional, crazy Luka game, right? That would just put such a cap on it and it would just stick it to Nico Harrison in just such a crazy way. But and I also wonder if Nico will be in attendance, or if he'll be shown, or if he'll be hanging out in his tunnel that we've seen him hang out in the last couple of weeks here. And if he is, and Luka gets any whiff of him at all, like we saw in that Lakers game, then Luka could have some extra motivation there. And we all know what Luka does with extra motivation.
I want blackout Luka. I want blackout Luka, full blackout. Just go blackout, score 50. Mike, what do you think he'll do?
Listen, we have seen at times, the thing that I keep coming back to is that's not really who Luka is when he's at his best. What we saw from him when he played the Mavs for the first time was angry Luka. The way that he was glaring in the direction of the Mavs bench, and certainly at Nico after that early three-pointer, that was Luka playing angry. And there have been times in his career where that's worked for him, but what made him great, what has made him great over the years, is the joy that he plays with. I feel like he's at a higher level when he's playing with joy. He's not Kobe, and I don't mean that to denigrate Luka at all, Kobe went to that Black Mamba level and just wanted to kill you.
Assassin.
That's not really how Luka's wired, so I don't know if this is the perfect dynamic for him to go off and just annihilate the Mavs, because it just doesn't seem like when he plays angry, for the most part. I can think of a couple instances through his career, but that's not really where he's
I was going to say,
every time he plays
I don't think Gobert feels the same way.
Ask Rudy Gobert about that, yeah. No doubt. All right, listen, it's great stuff.